Michael McNamara.
Thanks. In your response to Deputy Lahart, you called for people to be able to be asked at interview stage that their views. You said it would lessen your chance of recruiting somebody with conscientious objection. Do you not think the obvious corollary of that is that you would lessen the chance of somebody with conscientious objection being recruited?
But I think if you have,
in general,
as the state does, a statutory obligation to provide termination of pregnancy services, and your way of doing that is to provide funding for recruitment.
No, but my question was specific. Do you accept that it would lessen the chance of somebody with conscientious objection being recruited into the Irish Health Service?
Well, I would imagine so, yes.
And do you think that's acceptable?
I think if you have to meet the needs of the service, yes, it is.
Okay, thanks. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, you've been clear. You, in response to Senator O'Reilly, you said that we have the democratic mandate you have is to go beyond the recommendations. You called for strong leadership and courage. Do you think it would demonstrate strong leadership and courage to go beyond the recommendations?
Oh, I think, well, based on the comments of the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach and their perceived reluctance, as I found it, to interfere with the legislation or amend the legislation, I think that, yeah, a bit of courage wouldn't go amiss.
Do you think that it would also demonstrate strong leadership and courage to reject the recommendations, or do you think leadership and courage is restricted to those whose views you share? I mean, do you think that people whose views you don't agree with can also be courageous and demonstrate leadership?
I think my views are not the views that are expressed in the report. They are their views. They're evidence-based. And this country has to respond to the needs of the people. Democracy is the will of the people.
Okay.
The terms of reference were set down by the Department of Health. I think they were very good.
Thanks.
They have shown an evidence base. What else is the government going to go on except the evidence?
Okay, thank you. The terms of reference were to look at the objectives of the Act.
It was to look at whether the objectives of the Act were being achieved or not achieved.
Would you accept that one of the objectives of the Act is to provide for offences in respect of the intentional ending of the life of a fetus otherwise than in accordance with the Act?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and do you think that's reflected in that objective and that protection of the right to life of a fetus? Because obviously the prescription of the ending of the life is implicitly an acknowledgement of a right to life. I mean, you don't prescribe something, the ending of a life, unless you think there's a right to that life. Well, so do you think that's reflected in your report?
I think it is fairly reflected in the report, yes.
Okay.
I mean, the termination of pregnancy is illegal in Ireland unless it is done within the regulations of the Act. But the difficulty is, because of the way that it is being regulated, it is causing the medical profession to practice defensive medicine. And I don't think that was ever...
But you're recommending the removal of the offences which are a core objective of the Act as defined in its long title.
I'm recommending that medical professionals should not be criminalised by the Act. I mean, if they're a breach of their statutory duty, the courts can deal with that in the civil courts. If it is malpractice, their own regulatory body can deal with that. And they are long and protected processes, and, nobody in this House would want to be going through them.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm just conscious of the time and the latitude being afforded me. I don't want to abuse it.
Sorry.
Thank you very much for your replies.